Pain, it is the one guest that never asks permission before entering our lives. It doesn't knock, it breaks the door. But what if this uninvited visitor is not here to destroy us, but to awaken us? What if pain is not the punishment we think it is, but the push we need to evolve beyond what we thought we could be? Every wound, every tear, every fall carries a message, not of despair, but of transformation. The question is not, why did this happen to me? But what is life trying to make of me through this? Pain is a teacher, not a tormentor. It arrives uninvited, breaking through the walls we build around our comfort, exposing what we have refused to face. It doesn't come to destroy us, but to awaken us to parts of ourselves that have long been asleep. Every experience of pain reveals where we are still bound, where we still resist life's flow. It is not life's cruelty, but it's compassion in disguise, a force that strips away illusions so that truth can emerge. When we learn to see pain not as punishment but as instruction, it begins to work for us, shaping our character, sharpening our awareness and deepening our strength. Resisting pain only deepens it. The more we push it away, the tighter its grip becomes. Pain is not multiplied by its presence, but by our rejection of it. Acceptance is not surrender to misery. It is a higher intelligence that dissolves the intensity of suffering. When we allow pain to move through us, instead of fighting against it, we begin to see its temporary nature. It passes like a storm, leaving the air clearer, the heart lighter, and the soul wiser. True peace is not found in the absence of pain, but in the ability to remain untouched by it even while it burns. Growth begins where comfort ends. The moments that shake us are the moments that shape us. Comfort keeps us asleep in the familiar, but pain breaks the shell of limitation and reveals new dimensions of strength. Every wound carries within it the seed of transformation, every fall the chance to rise higher. The cracks in our hearts are not signs of weakness, they are openings through which understanding and compassion can enter. When we stop asking why pain came and start asking what it came to reveal, our perception shifts from victimhood to mastery. The energy of pain can be transformed into purpose when we respond consciously rather than react blindly. What once hurt us can become the very fuel that drives our service to others. Our scars become symbols of survival and wisdom, not reminders of defeat. When we use our struggles to uplift those still trapped in theirs, pain loses its power to wound us. Gratitude then arises naturally, not because we enjoyed the hardship, but because we recognize how it shaped the depth of our being. Every hardship refines us, carving away what is false and leaving only what is essential. Freedom lies in the courage to face pain without fear. When we no longer run from discomfort, we discover a vast strength within, a strength untouched by circumstance. Pain then becomes a companion, not an enemy, guiding us towards self-realization. It is the fire through which raw existence is purified into clarity. To turn pain into purpose is to become an alchemist of life, to take what was meant to break us and forge it into the very force that awakens us. In that transformation, we do not escape pain, we transcend it. When pain appears, our first instinct is to fight it, to push it away, to pretend it does not exist. Yet the more we resist pain, the more it tightens its grip upon us. Resistance feeds the fire, while awareness cools it. Pain is not destroyed by denial, it is dissolved by understanding. The moment we stop running from it and face it directly, we realize it is not as unbearable as our fear imagined. Pain demands our attention not to punish us, but to awaken us to what we have ignored within ourselves. It shows us the cracks in our armor, the hidden corners of attachment, the illusions we protect so fiercely. Acceptance does not mean surrendering to misery. It means seeing things as they are without adding stories, judgment or fear. To accept pain is to allow awareness to breathe through it, to feel it fully without resistance or resentment. In that acceptance, pain begins to lose its sting. It transforms from something destructive into something deeply revealing. When we stop asking how to escape pain and begin asking what it is trying to teach, it becomes a doorway rather than a wall. Acceptance turns pain into a process of purification, burning away the unnecessary so only the essential remains. The mind, in its constant desire for control, resists what it cannot understand. But pain is not something to be understood by the intellect, it must be experienced through presence. When awareness watches pain without interference, the pain begins to shift. Its intensity reduces, its message becomes clear. It ceases to be an enemy and becomes an ally in our evolution. The more aware we become, the less room there is for suffering, because suffering is born not from the pain itself, but from the mind's resistance to it. Awareness and resistance cannot coexist. One dissolves the other. To live without resistance is to live freely, even in the midst of challenge. The person who accepts pain consciously walks through fire and comes out forged, not burned. They do not waste energy fighting what is, but instead channel that energy into transformation. Every hardship then becomes a teacher, every discomfort an invitation to grow. What once seemed unbearable turns into the foundation of strength, and what once felt like loss becomes a gateway to deeper understanding. Pain, when embraced, polishes the roughness of the human spirit into clarity and resilience. The moment we stop resisting pain, we begin to experience its hidden intelligence. It guides us toward balance, towards authenticity, towards truth. Pain is not here to crush us, it is here to cleanse us. When awareness stands firm and resistance fades, what remains is not suffering but liberation. In that space, pain becomes power, struggle becomes strength, and every moment of discomfort becomes a step toward awakening. What was once a burden becomes the very force that elevates the spirit beyond fear, beyond fragility, into the boundless freedom of being. Pain touches every living being, it is woven into the very fabric of existence. No life escapes it. It visits through loss, failure, rejection and change. Yet while pain is universal, suffering is deeply personal. Pain belongs to the body, but suffering is born in the mind that clings to what was or what could have been. Pain may strike once, but the mind repeats it endlessly, keeping the wound alive through memory and fear. The body feels pain in the present moment, but the mind multiplies it across time, turning a single event into an endless echo. When we experience pain, the body reacts and then begins to heal, but the mind resists. It questions, it compares, it judges, and it refuses to release the past. This resistance is the root of suffering. We replay our hurts, we create stories around them, and we wrap our identity around the pain until it becomes part of who we think we are. The moment we hold on to pain, we turn it into suffering. The moment we accept it and allow it to pass, it loses its hold. What hurts us once can either imprison us for years or teach us in a moment. The difference lies only in our willingness to let go. Suffering thrives on attachment. The more tightly we grip our ideas of how life should be, the more we bleed when life moves differently. Pain enters as a visitor, but attachment builds it a home. We suffer not because of what happens, but because of our refusal to accept that it has happened. Life's natural flow becomes unbearable when we demand that it always move according to our will. Pain demands endurance for a while, suffering demands endless resistance. When we see this difference clearly, a great freedom arises within us. We understand that while pain is unavoidable, suffering is not mandatory. Awareness cuts through the web of suffering like a sharp blade. When the mind witnesses pain without judgment, it loses its power to wound deeply. The story that fuels suffering begins to crumble. What remains is a raw experience. Intense, perhaps, but pure. The body may still ache, but the spirit stands untouched. This clarity does not come from denial, but from observation. To see pain as it is, without the decoration of fear or self-pity, is to reclaim our inner strength. The fire of pain then becomes a force of transformation rather than destruction. Freedom from suffering does not mean the absence of pain, it means the absence of bondage. Pain will come and go as day follows night, but suffering ends when we stop feeding it with thought and attachment. When the mind learns to stay silent in the face of discomfort, pain becomes simply a passing sensation, not a lifelong scar. To understand this truth is to awaken, to live as one who feels deeply, yet remains unshaken. Pain touches the surface of life, suffering grows only in the depths of the mind. When the mind is free, even pain bows before peace. Transformation begins where comfort ends. Comfort is a soft prison. It keeps us warm, secure and blind. It whispers that everything is fine, that there is no need to change, no need to reach higher or dig deeper. But the moment comfort is disturbed, our true nature is revealed. Pain, challenge and uncertainty strip away the illusions that comfort built. When life removes what we thought we needed, it is not cruelty, it is an invitation to awaken. Growth demands friction, and the soul cannot expand without the pressure of experience. The fire that burns away comfort is the same fire that forges strength. In comfort, there is stagnation. The river of life stops moving and the water turns still and lifeless. Discomfort forces motion, it demands awareness. Every trial we face breaks another layer of our false identity. We are not shaped by what is easy, but by what tests us beyond our limits. Every fall shatters an illusion, every loss reveals a deeper truth. Pain shakes the foundations of who we think we are, and in that shaking, the dust of pretension settles. What remains is real, raw and alive. Transformation is never gentle. It is a tearing apart of what no longer serves us. The masks we wear are comfortable. They win approval, they protect us, they make life predictable. Yet they also suffocate the essence of who we are. When pain enters, it rips those masks away without mercy. It exposes our fears, our pretenses, our hidden insecurities. And though that exposure feels unbearable, it is the only path to authenticity. Pain unmasks the false self, and what emerges is not weakness but truth. Through struggle, we meet ourselves not as the world defines us, but as we truly are, unfiltered, unguarded, unbreakable. Pain reveals the strength that comfort hides. Growth demands destruction. Something old must die for something new to be born. The walls we build for safety become the boundaries of our potential. Life, in its wisdom, dismantles those walls through challenge and loss. Every breakdown carries the seed of a breakthrough, but only if we stop clinging to the ruins. The mind screams for the familiar, but the spirit thrives in the unknown. When we surrender to that process, we stop seeing pain as punishment and begin to see it as transformation in motion. What feels like chaos is often creation wearing a different face. The end of comfort is the beginning of evolution. Those who dare to step beyond the familiar discover dimensions of strength and clarity that comfort could never offer. Every scar becomes a mark of awakening, every wound a doorway to wisdom. When we stop seeking safety and start embracing growth, we become unshakable. Transformation is not a choice we make when life is easy. It is the response we cultivate when life tests our very core. Only through the destruction of comfort does the spirit rise in its full power, fearless, vast and free. Wounds are not signs of weakness, they are evidence of depth. The deeper the wound, the more it shows how intensely we have lived, how deeply we have cared, and how strongly we have felt. When life strikes us, it opens spaces within that were once sealed shut by pride, fear, or ignorance. Through those openings, something greater can enter. Clarity, compassion, strength. Every wound, when faced with awareness, becomes a doorway to expansion. But when hidden or denied, it festers into bitterness. Pain demands to be felt because through feeling it, we allow light to reach the darkest corners of our being. Most people try to cover their wounds, to pretend they are untouched, unshaken. But the act of hiding only deepens the darkness. What we conceal controls us, what we confront transforms us. When we look at our wounds without fear or shame, we begin to see that they hold not just hurt, but hidden intelligence. Every scar carries a story, every ache carries a lesson. It is only when we stop asking why something happened to us and start asking what it is revealing within us that the wound begins to heal. Understanding turns pain into wisdom, and wisdom is light born from darkness. A wound is an opening, and every opening invites both vulnerability and illumination. Vulnerability is often mistaken for weakness, yet it is the greatest act of courage. To stay open after being hurt is to choose strength over fear. It means refusing to allow pain to harden the heart or poison the spirit. The light that enters through the wound purifies the pain, transforming it into compassion. The one who has suffered deeply and remained open becomes a source of healing for others, not through words alone, but through presence, because they have walked through fire and emerged with understanding. When we allow light to enter our wounds, we begin to see life through a different lens. We stop measuring experiences as good or bad and start seeing them as necessary. The wound that once felt like a curse becomes a source of power. The betrayal that once broke us becomes the reason we learned to stand alone. The loss that once emptied us becomes the space where new life is born. Every experience, however painful, refines the spirit if we let it. The more we open, the more we grow. The more we resist, the more we decay. The light that enters through pain is not external. It is the awakening of our own inner awareness. It is the realization that nothing can truly break what is real within us. The wound, once healed, becomes a window through which we see the vastness of existence. It teaches us that the very places where we thought we were weakest are where our greatest strength was waiting to be found. In embracing our wounds, we do not become smaller, we become whole. The heart that has been pierced by pain and still chooses to remain open shines with a light that no darkness can dim. Reaction is the first impulse of an untrained mind. It bursts out like fire, uncontrolled and consuming, leaving behind only ashes of regret. When pain strikes, reaction is instinctive. It demands to be expressed, shouted, or suppressed. But reaction keeps us trapped within the same cycle that created the pain in the first place. It is born of emotion, not understanding. It gives pain the power to rule over us, to dictate our actions, to control our direction. The one who reacts is a slave to the moment, tossed about by the turbulence of inner chaos. To break this chain, awareness must rise above impulse. Response is born from awareness, not agitation. It requires a moment of stillness, a breath between pain and action. In that space, clarity appears. When we respond rather than react, we reclaim power from the situation. Pain no longer controls us, it becomes a signal, a source of information. Response transforms chaos into order, turning emotional fire into conscious energy. The mind that can pause and see clearly even in discomfort holds mastery over itself. It is not numbness but balance, feeling everything fully yet acting with precision and strength. Reaction seeks escape, but response seeks evolution. To react is to amplify pain, to respond is to transcend it. When awareness steps in, the same energy that once fueled anger or sorrow becomes the force that drives transformation. Pain in its raw form is energy, untamed, powerful and neutral. The direction we give it decides whether it becomes destruction or creation. By responding with consciousness, we convert pain into motion, motion into purpose, and purpose into growth. Every challenge becomes fuel for expansion when met with awareness instead of resistance. To cultivate response, one must practice silence in the midst of turmoil. Silence does not mean withdrawal, it means inner steadiness. It is the power to watch emotion rise and fall without being consumed by it. In that silence, the truth of every situation reveals itself. The mind, once clouded by reaction, begins to see patterns, lessons and opportunities that were invisible before. This is where true strength lies, not in controlling others, but in mastering one's own internal world. The one who can remain centered while everything shakes around them is untouchable. When response becomes our natural state, life itself transforms. Pain loses its venom because it no longer provokes blindness, it awakens clarity. Every wound becomes a source of insight. Every loss a lesson in detachment, every disappointment a teacher in patience. Reaction belongs to survival, response belongs to awareness. To live in response is to live consciously, to move through pain not as a victim but as a creator. When the mind learns to respond rather than react, pain no longer burns, it illuminates. It becomes the spark that lights the path to purpose. Purpose does not reveal itself in moments of distraction or escape. It arises only in the stillness of presence, when one dares to face life without distortion. Running from pain is running from the very source of transformation. Every experience carries within it a fragment of meaning, but meaning cannot be seen through the haze of avoidance. When the mind is restless, it searches endlessly outside itself for purpose, believing it to be hidden somewhere in the world. Yet purpose is never found through pursuit, it is uncovered through awareness. When one sits with pain instead of fleeing from it, the noise of confusion fades and the quiet voice of truth begins to speak. Pain is not the enemy of purpose, it is the forge in which purpose is created. Every trial strips away what is shallow and reveals what is essential. When we resist pain, we resist the process that gives life its depth. It is in moments of struggle that the soul defines its direction. Presence does not demand that pain disappear, it demands that we witness it fully without judgment. Through that witnessing, clarity begins to emerge. The question is never why pain exists, but what it is awakening within us. Those who dare to sit in that fire come out not burned, but illuminated. In presence, pain loses its chaos and reveals its pattern. Every ache, every loss, every failure aligns into a thread that connects past to purpose. The mind, accustomed to reacting, begins to perceive the intelligence behind each experience. When we stop labeling moments as good or bad, we start seeing their necessity. Purpose becomes clear not through thought, but through direct awareness of what life is showing us right now. The present moment, when entered fully, contains every answer the restless mind seeks. Pain is simply one of the languages through which life communicates meaning. To live in presence is to stop demanding that life be different and instead understand what it is trying to create through us. Every breath, every challenge, every silence carries guidance. When awareness deepens, purpose stops being something we chase, it becomes something we express. The energy once trapped in resistance is released into creation. The pain that once crippled becomes the strength that drives action. In that shift, we stop living reactively and begin living intentionally. Life no longer feels like a series of random events, but a deliberate unfolding of consciousness. Presence turns pain into power, because it transforms reaction into realization. It teaches us that we do not need to control life, we only need to experience it completely. The one who can remain still in the face of pain begins to see beyond the surface of suffering into the purpose beneath it. That purpose is not something given from outside, it is born within from the meeting point of awareness and endurance. When presence deepens, even pain becomes sacred, for it ceases to wound and begins to guide. Purpose then is not a goal to be reached, but a state of being awakened through conscious living. The deepest transformation happens when pain no longer revolves around the self. When suffering is carried only for one's own story, it becomes heavy and suffocating. But when that same pain is turned outward in service to others, its weight changes into purpose. The wounds that once defined us start to dissolve into compassion. The energy that once fueled grief becomes a force of connection. Service is not charity, it is the natural evolution of understanding. When a person truly sees their own suffering, they recognize it in every face they meet, and something within them refuses to stand idle while others bleed the same way. Scars are the evidence of survival, not of defeat. They are the imprints of battles fought and lessons earned through endurance. Each scar holds wisdom that cannot be learned from comfort or ease. To share that wisdom is to honor the pain that created it. Those who hide their scars hide their power. For every healed wound carries medicine for another. When we open those stories to the world, not in self-pity but in strength, we give others a map out of their darkness. What once broke us becomes the bridge that connects us to humanity. Through those scars, pain is not wasted, it is transformed into guidance. Service born from pain carries a power that no theory or philosophy can replicate. Words spoken from untouched comfort may sound wise, but they lack depth. Words forged in suffering and tempered in understanding cut through illusion like a blade. When one who has fallen rises and reaches back to lift another, that act becomes sacred. It is not about being a savior, it is about remembering our shared vulnerability. In serving others, we do not lose ourselves, we dissolve the walls that separate us. Compassion becomes action and pain finds redemption through contribution. To turn pain into service, one must stop seeing life as a personal battle and start seeing it as a collective unfolding. The same struggles repeat through generations and across lives, only in different forms. By lifting another, we are not merely helping them, we are healing the same wound that once lived within us. Pain teaches empathy, and empathy, when expressed, becomes service. It is through this flow that life balances itself. What was once chaos becomes harmony, what was once despair becomes devotion. Pain, when offered in service, becomes the highest expression of love. When scars are turned into service, pain finds its final purpose. It no longer seeks justification or meaning because it becomes meaning itself. The heart that has endured and still chooses to give becomes unbreakable. Service born from pain carries a purity that no comfort can produce. It is fierce, unwavering and real. Every time we use our past to light another's path, we cleanse our own. Pain that once isolated us becomes the very thread that binds humanity together. In giving from the place where we once hurt, we complete the circle of healing and life itself becomes an act of service. Gratitude is the fire that refines pain into wisdom. It does not erase wounds but changes the way we see them. When the mind stops cursing what has happened and begins to see the deeper rhythm behind it, bitterness dissolves. Every loss, every betrayal, every failure begins to reveal its hidden value. Gratitude does not come from comfort, it arises from the recognition that even suffering has played its part in awakening strength. It is a shift from asking why life hurt us to understanding how life shaped us. Through gratitude, Pain loses its venom and becomes a mirror reflecting our evolution. Bitterness thrives in the soil of resistance, but gratitude blooms in acceptance. The moment we stop fighting against our past, we begin to draw power from it. Every hardship that once drained us becomes a source of endurance. Gratitude turns memories of pain into lessons of clarity. It allows us to see that every event, no matter how cruel it seemed, pushed us toward awareness. It makes us realize that the world was never against us, it was only teaching us to stand tall. Gratitude transforms wounds into wisdom, not by changing what happened, but by changing the eyes that look upon it. Those who learn gratitude in the face of suffering carry an unshakable light. Their hearts are not numb, they have seen darkness and still chosen to bless it. Gratitude does not deny pain, it sanctifies it. It allows the heart to breathe freely again, unburdened by anger or blame. When one can look at their past and whisper, "Thank you," to every shadow, they are no longer defined by what hurt them. They rise above the chain of cause and effect, living not as victims of circumstance but as witnesses to transformation. Gratitude is the proof that pain has fulfilled its purpose. In gratitude, even the smallest joys regain their sacredness. The warmth of sunlight, the sound of laughter, the presence of breath, everything becomes a gift. Pain often blinds us to these simple blessings, but gratitude restores our sight. It teaches us to see abundance in the midst of scarcity, to find meaning in impermanence. When gratitude flows, it becomes impossible to carry hatred for long. The heart, once hardened by pain, softens into understanding. Gratitude does not make life perfect, it makes it profound. It reveals that every scar carries beauty when seen through the eyes of awareness. The power of gratitude lies in its ability to transmute. It is the alchemy of the spirit, turning heaviness into light and wounds into wisdom. Those who live in gratitude are not spared from pain, they are strengthened by it. They walk through storms and emerge untouched because they have learned to see purpose in every drop of rain. Gratitude does not demand that life be gentle, it demands that we remain awake. It is the quiet strength that whispers, even in darkness, that everything has meaning. Through gratitude, pain becomes teacher, memory becomes strength, and life itself becomes a sacred offering. Fear is the prison that keeps the spirit bound. When the mind anticipates pain, it builds walls of avoidance, hesitation, and control. Every step becomes measured, every choice shaded by doubt. Fear of pain narrows life into a shadow of its potential, and the spirit begins to shrink, accepting limitation as reality. The moment we cling to comfort and flee from discomfort, we surrender our sovereignty. Pain itself is neutral, it is neither enemy nor punishment, but fear makes it a tyrant. Only when the mind dares to face what it fears does the path to true freedom begin. So, when pain visits you next, don't rush to chase it away. Invite it in, sit with it in silence, ask what it has come to teach. Because one day, you will look back and realize it was your pain that gave birth to your power, your tears that watered the roots of your strength. Turning pain into purpose is not about escaping suffering, it is about alchemizing it into wisdom. When pain becomes your teacher, purpose becomes your way of life.